Captain Geo Kim stood at the front of the shuttle as it dropped through the purple clouds of the Zabrani homeworld. His hands were tight on the rail. This was his 20th year in the Earth Defense Force, but the first time meeting a new alien race. 2 minutes to landing, Captain, said the pilot. Jiho nodded and checked his uniform one last time. The blue and gold of Earth's colors shone bright against the gray metal of the shuttle. 4 other humans stood behind him, all chosen for this first meeting with the Zabrani. Remember, Jiho said to his team, we need their help against the Vector Collective. Be polite, be strong, and watch everything. The shuttle touched down on a flat landing pad made of some kind of dark stone. As the doors opened, Jiho felt the warm, thick air of the alien world hit his face. It smelled like cinnamon and metal. A group of tall figures waited for them. The Zabrani looked almost human, but their skin was pale blue and they had no hair. Their eyes were large and black, with no white parts. They wore tight black suits that seemed to drink in the light. But it was not the Zabrani that made Jiho's heart beat faster. It was the things that moved around their feet. Zabras, whispered Dr. Minali, the team's scientist. They're bioweapons. The Zabras looked like a mix between cats and shadows. They were about the size of big dogs, but moved like oil on water. Their bodies were black and sleek, with no sound as they moved. 6 legs, not 4. No eyes that Jiho could see. Just smooth, dark heads that turned toward the humans. One Zabrani stepped forward. She was taller than the others, with marks on her suit that must show high rank. I am Vexa, she said in perfect English, ambassador of the Zabrani High Council. You are the humans who wish to talk about the Vector problem. Jiho stepped down from the shuttle and bowed slightly. Captain Geo Kim of the Earth Defense Force. We bring greetings from Earth. Vexa did not bow back. One of her Zabras moved closer to Jiho, circling him. He wanted to step back, but knew that would look like fear. The Zabra made no sound. Not a footstep. Not a breath. Nothing. The Vector ships have been seen near your solar system, Vexa said. They have taken 3 of our outer worlds already. They will not stop. They hit one of our colony planets last month, Jiho said. We fought them off, but lost many ships. Our leaders think we should work together. Vexa looked at him for a long moment. Perhaps. Follow me to the meeting hall. We will talk more there. As they walked, Jiho noticed how the Zabras moved around the group. They were always watching, always ready. One was always near Vexa, like a guard. Your Zabras, Jiho said carefully. They are pets. Vexa made a sound like cold laughter. Not pets, Captain. They are weapons, tools, the finest hunters in 5 galaxies. Silent, patient, deadly. We have also worked on animal partners for combat, Jiho said, but with different goals. Yes, Vexa said, not looking at him. We have heard of your howlers. Loud, wild, primitive. She stopped at a tall door made of the same black stone as the landing pad. But we did not ask you here to compare weapons. We asked you here to discuss an alliance. The door slid open without a sound, just like the Zabras moved. The Vector want both our worlds, Captain, Vexa said, her black eyes fixed on him. The question is, can your loud, wild ways help us stop them, or will you just alert them to our plans? Jiho stepped through the door, very aware of the silent Zabras following behind him like moving pieces of night. This was not going to be an easy alliance to build. The meeting hall was huge, with high ceilings and walls made of the same black stone. In the center was a round table with seats for the humans and Zabrani. Jiho sat across from Vexa, while their teams took the other seats. The Vector Collective has better ships and more weapons than either of us alone, said Vexa. But together, we might stand a chance. Jiho nodded. Earth can provide ships and soldiers. What can the Zabrani offer? Vexa smiled, but it did not reach her black eyes. We can offer something much more valuable than simple force. We can offer stealth. Surprise. She touched a small device on her wrist. Let me show you. The lights in the room dimmed. A blue light came on, and suddenly the air above the table filled with small dots of light. A map of stars. This is the Vector Home System, Vexa said. The map zoomed in on 7 planets around a red sun. And this is what our Zabras can do. The map changed to show a building. Guards with weapons walked around it. Then, from the shadows, shapes moved. The Zabras. They slipped past the guards without a sound. No alarms went off. The Zabras reached the center of the building, and then the map went dark. When the lights came back on, Vexa was standing. That was a real mission. 6 Zabras, 30 guards, all dead. The Vector never knew what hit them. Impressive, Jiho said, meaning it. But surprise only works once. What happens when they know you're coming? Vexa's eyes narrowed. Our Zabras are not just for surprise attacks. They are the perfect killers. Silent, patient. They can wait for days without moving. They can slip through the smallest spaces. They can kill without being seen. Jiho looked at the Zabras around the room. They were still, like statues made of night. He could see now why they were so feared. Earth has its own bioweapons program, Jiho said. We call them Howlers. They're different from your Zabras, but just as effective. Ah yes, Vexa said, her voice cold. Your Howlers, we have heard of them. Big, loud, like your people. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. What good is a weapon that announces itself before it strikes? Jiho felt his face get hot, but he kept his voice calm. Sometimes, Ambassador, the point is not to hide what you are. Sometimes, the point is to make your enemy afraid. Vexa tilted her head like she was looking at something strange. Fear has its uses, but the Vector are not easily frightened. Neither are humans, Jiho replied, and neither are our Howlers. A tall male Zabrini stepped forward. Perhaps we should see these Howlers in action before we decide on an alliance. Vexa nodded. Yes, I agree with Commander Telex. A demonstration would be educational. Jiho looked at his team. This wasn't part of the plan. But he could see the doubt in the Zabrini's eyes. They didn't believe humans could match their technology or their Zabras. What kind of demonstration? Jiho asked. A contest, Vexa said. Your Howlers against our Zabras. In a controlled setting, of course, to see which approach is more effective. Jiho knew this was dangerous. The Zabrini clearly thought they would win. But turning down the challenge would make Earth look weak. I accept, Jiho said, but I'll need to return to Earth to get my Howler. We don't bring them on diplomatic missions. Of course, Vexa said with a small smile. Return in 7 days. We will have everything ready. She stood up, ending the meeting. As she walked past Jiho, she added, I look forward to seeing if your Howlers are as impressive as you claim. As Jiho and his team left the meeting hall, he couldn't help but notice how the Zabras watched them go. Silent, waiting, like death itself. He would need to prepare carefully for this contest. The future of Earth might depend on it. The Earth shuttle broke through the clouds, and Jiho felt his shoulders relax for the first time in days. The blue-green of Earth was a welcome sight after the strange purple skies of the Zabrani world. Good to be home, Captain, asked Dr. Minali. Very good, Jiho said. I don't think I took a full breath the whole time we were there. The shuttle landed at New Seoul Spaceport, where a small team waited for them. Jiho spotted Dr. Subin Park right away. She was the head of the Howler program, and one of the smartest people Jiho knew. Welcome back, Captain, Subin said, shaking his hand. How did it go? Jiho frowned. We have a problem. The Zabrani want to test our Howlers against their Zabras before they agree to help us against the Vector. Subin's eyes went wide. A contest. That wasn't the plan. Plans change, Jiho said. Now we need to get ready. How is Stormbringer? At the name, Subin smiled. See for yourself." She led Jiho to a large building at the edge of the spaceport. As soon as they entered, Jiho heard it, the deep, rumbling howl he knew so well. His heart beat faster. "He knows you're here," Subin said. They walked through a set of heavy doors into a large training area. And there he was, Stormbringer, almost as tall as a man when standing on his back legs, thick gray fur with streaks of black, eyes that glowed blue from the cyber enhancements. When Stormbringer saw Jiho, the howler let out a sound that was half howl, half bark of joy. He bounded across the room, moving faster than something so big should be able to move. Jiho braced himself just in time as 200 pounds of howler crashed into him. He laughed and wrapped his arms around Stormbringer's neck. "I missed you too, boy," he said. "He's been restless since you left," Subin said. "The bond between you two is as strong as ever." Jiho scratched behind Stormbringer's ears, feeling the metal implants under the fur. These were what let howler and human share thoughts and feelings. Not control, share. That was what the Zabrani didn't understand. "The Zabras are something else," Jiho told Subin. "They move like shadows. No sound, no mercy, just perfect killing machines." Subin nodded. "I studied the reports. They're impressive, but they're tools, not partners. That's where our howlers are different." Stormbringer growled, low in his throat, as if he understood. "We have 7 days to prepare," Jiho said. "The Zabrani think our howlers are crude and loud. They don't understand why we made them the way we did." "Then we'll show them," Subin said with a smile. "Let's get to work." For the next 5 days, Jiho and Stormbringer trained harder than ever before. They ran the combat course until both were tired. They practiced tracking in dark rooms. They worked on silent signals and quick attacks. On the 6th day, Jiho sat with Stormbringer under the stars. The howler's head was heavy on his lap. "They think you're just a weapon," Jiho said softly, stroking the thick fur. "They don't understand that you're so much more. You're my friend, my partner." Stormbringer looked up with those glowing blue eyes. Through their bond, Jiho felt the howler's feelings, loyalty, excitement for the coming challenge, and something like pride. "Their Zabras are silent," Jiho continued, "but you let the world know what's coming. And that's not a weakness." He smiled. "Sometimes the howl is part of the hunt." Stormbringer's tail thumped against the ground. He understood. Tomorrow they would leave for the Zabrani world again. Tomorrow they would show what a howler could really do. And Jiho had a feeling the Zabrani were not ready for it. The Zabrani shuttle landed at New Seoul Spaceport 2 days earlier than expected. Jiho was called from training with Stormbringer to meet the surprise visitors. When he arrived at the meeting room, he found Ambassador Vexa standing with 2 other Zabrani. 3 Zabras moved around their feet like living shadows. "Captain Kim," Vexa said with a small nod, "we decided to come to you instead. It seemed efficient." Jiho hid his surprise. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. These are your companions." Vexa pointed to the tall male Zabrani. "Commander Telex, head of our military forces." Then she pointed to the smaller female. "And Nira, our chief scientist. They wanted to see your howler program before the contest." Dr. Subin Park entered the room just then. Her eyes went wide at the sight of the Zabras. "This is Dr. Subin Park," Jiho said. "She leads our howler program." Nira stepped forward, her black eyes fixed on Subin. "So you are the one who made these loud creatures. I am curious about your methods." "And I'm curious about yours," Subin replied. "Shall we show each other our work?" Jiho could feel the tension in the room. This was not just about weapons anymore. This was about 2 very different ways of thinking. The group walked to the howler training area. When they entered, 5 howlers were running an obstacle course. They jumped over walls, crawled under barriers, and smashed through targets. Their howls filled the air as they encouraged each other. The Zabras pressed close to their Zabrani masters, seeming nervous at the noise. "As you can see," Subin said, Our Howlers work as a team. They communicate constantly. So much noise, Nera said with a frown. How can they hear commands? They don't need to hear commands, Subin explained. They think for themselves, and they share thoughts with their human partners through their neural implants. Naira's eyes narrowed. You let them think for themselves. That seems risky. We don't just let them, Subin said proudly. We encourage it. A Howler that can think is more valuable than one that just obeys. Commander Telex spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and cold. Our Zabras obey perfectly. They do not question. They do not hesitate. They simply do as they are told. Jiho watched as Stormbringer entered the training area. The big Howler saw him and bounded over, tail wagging. He put his massive head under Jiho's hand for pets. This is my partner, Stormbringer, Jiho said. Vexa looked at the Howler with doubt in her eyes. It seems emotional. He is, Jiho agreed. That's not a weakness. It's a strength. Stormbringer fights harder because he cares about me. About Earth. Caring is a distraction, Telex said. Our Zabras care about nothing. They feel nothing. They simply do their job. Subin couldn't stay quiet at that. And what happens when the job is done? What do you do with them then? The three Zabrani looked at each other. It was Nera who answered. When a mission is complete, Zabras are removed. They are not meant for long life, only for perfect service. You kill them. Subin's voice was shocked. After they serve you. They are tools, Vexa said simply. When a tool is no longer needed, you put it away. Stormbringer growled, low in his throat. Through their bond, Jiho felt his anger and confusion. The Howler understood more than the Zabrani thought. Our Howlers live full lives, Jiho said, keeping his voice calm despite his anger. They are our partners, not our tools. Some serve in combat. Others help in search and rescue. Some even retire and live with their human families. How sentimental, Telex said with something like disgust. This is why humans will never be as effective as Zabrani. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Two cultures, two ways of thinking, stood facing each other across a gap that seemed impossible to bridge. And in 3 days, they would have to fight side by side against the Vector. Lieutenant Hyun sat alone in the dark room, the only light coming from her screens. As head of security for the Earth Defense Force, she had been watching the Zabrani visitors since they arrived. Something didn't feel right to her. Lieutenant, you called for me. Do-Hyun Lee, the best code breaker in the EDF, stood in the doorway. Yes. Come look at this. Hyun pointed to one of her screens. The Zabrani ship has been sending signals. Short bursts, very well hidden. Do-Hyun sat down next to her. To whom? That's what I need you to find out. Hyun moved aside. These signals bypass our normal systems. They're encrypted in a way I've never seen. Do-Hyun's fingers flew over the keyboard. For an hour, he worked in silence. Hyun watched as lines of code filled the screen. Finally, Do-Hyun sat back. His face was pale. You need to call Captain Kim. Now. 10 minutes later, Jiho arrived with Stormbringer at his side. The Howler's ears were up, sensing the tension in the room. What did you find? Jiho asked. Do-Hyun pointed to the screen. The signals are going to a Vector ship, hidden just outside our solar system. Jiho's blood went cold. Are you sure? Yes, Hyun said. And we decoded some of the messages. The Zabrani aren't here to form an alliance with us. They're working with the Vector. Do-Hyun finished. They've been allies for months. Jiho felt like the floor was moving under him. But why come to us? Why pretend to want an alliance? Hyun brought up more data on the screen. The messages talk about Earth's defenses, our weak points. They're gathering information for an attack. And the Zabras? Jiho asked, though he feared he knew the answer. They're not just here for the contest, Hyun said. They're assassins. The messages mentioned targets, our defense grid control center, our main power stations, and she paused. And what? Jiho demanded. You, Captain, Do-Yun said quietly. They plan to kill you during the contest. You and anyone else who knows too much about their Zabras. Stormbringer growled, low and dangerous. Through their bond, Jiho felt the Howler's protective anger. We need to arrest them, Hyun said. Right now. But Jiho shook his head. No. If we do that, the vector ships will know something is wrong. They might attack early. He paced the room, thinking. We need to play along. Make them think their plan is working. Captain, that's too dangerous, Hyun protested. It's the only way, Jiho said. We turn their plan against them. We let them think the contest is still happening. But we'll be ready. He turned to Do-Yun. Can you send fake signals? Make it look like our systems are normal. Do-Yun nodded. Yes, I can do that. Good. And Hyun, I need you to quietly move our best soldiers into position. Make it look like normal security for the contest. What about the other Howlers? Hyun asked. Jiho smiled for the first time since entering the room. Oh, they'll be there, but not where the Zabrani expect them. He knelt down next to Stormbringer, looking into those glowing blue eyes. The Howler's mind touched his through their bond. Understanding, determination, and a fierce will to protect. They think their silent killers give them the advantage, Jiho said. They think surprise is on their side. But we know the truth now. He stood up, a plan forming in his mind. The Zabrani and Vector are about to learn something important about humans and our Howlers. What's that? Hyun asked. Sometimes, Jiho said, the ones who howl before they attack are the most dangerous of all, because they're not hiding what they are. They're warning you. Stormbringer threw back his head and let out a long, powerful howl that echoed through the room. It wasn't a sound of fear or pain. It was a promise. The arena built for the contest was huge. It took up most of New Seoul Park, with high walls around it. Inside were forests, open spaces, small buildings, and underground tunnels, perfect for testing both Zabras and Howlers. A large crowd had gathered to watch. Most were humans, but in a special box sat the Zabrani delegation. Vexa, Telex, Nira, and several others. What they didn't know was that many of the spectators were actually soldiers in plain clothes. Jiho had placed them carefully around the arena. Each one knew about the Zabrani's plan and was ready to act when needed. Are you ready, Captain? Dr. Subin asked as they stood in the preparation area. 5 Howlers waited nearby, including Stormbringer. As ready as we'll ever be, Jiho said. He checked his neural link with Stormbringer one last time. It was strong, clear. Through it, he could feel the Howler's excitement and determination. The Zabras were in a different area. Jiho had seen them arrive. 20 of them, more than expected. They moved like liquid darkness, making no sound. Remember, Jiho told his team, we need to make this look real. The Zabrani must believe we don't suspect anything. A voice came over the speakers. Welcome to the first interspecies combat challenge. Today we will see the skills of both Zabras and Howlers. Vexa stepped into the center of the arena. The contest will have 3 parts. First, tracking. Then, target elimination. Finally, a team challenge. The crowd cheered. The show was beginning. For the first test, both Zabras and Howlers had to find hidden targets in the forest area. The Zabras went first. They slipped into the trees like shadows and returned 10 minutes later with all targets found. They had moved so quietly that the cameras could barely track them. Then it was the Howlers' turn. They did not try to be quiet. They ran through the forest, sniffing the air, howling to each other when they found something. They were loud, but just as fast as the Zabras. Interesting approach, Vexa said to Jiho, her voice cool. Effective, but not very. Subtle. Jiho smiled. Different doesn't mean worse, Ambassador. The second test was target elimination. Robotic enemies were placed throughout the arena. The Zabras had to take them out without being detected. Again, the Zabras were amazing. They moved like ghosts, disabling each robot without making a sound. The crowd watched on big screens as the cameras tried to keep up with them. When the Howlers' turn came, they used a completely different approach. They didn't hide. They charged the robots head-on, howling as they attacked. Their power was incredible. Metal tore under their strong jaws. What they lacked in stealth, they made up for in speed and strength. As the day went on, Gio noticed something. More and more Zabras were entering the arena, but not all were returning to the Zabrani area. Some were slipping away when they thought no one was watching. They're moving into position, Gio whispered to Lieutenant Hyun. Hyun nodded. Our people are tracking them. So far, 3 have headed toward the defense grid building. 2 more toward the power station. And the Howlers. In position, just as you ordered. Waiting. The sun began to set. The final test was announced. A night challenge in the urban section of the arena. Teams of Zabras and Howlers would compete to capture a flag in the dark. As Gio prepared Stormbringer for this last test, he felt the Howler's mind touch his through their bond. The Howler knew this was not just a game. This was the real fight. Soon, Gio whispered, scratching behind Stormbringer's ears. Let them make the first move. Then we show them what Howlers can really do. In the growing darkness, he could see the Zabras gathering, their black bodies nearly invisible in the shadows. Silent, deadly, ready. But so were the Howlers, and they had something the Zabras didn't have. They had something worth fighting for. Night fell over the arena. The final test was about to begin. But the real battle was happening elsewhere. At the Earth Defense Grid Control Center, 3 guards stood at the main door. They looked bored, but each one wore a small earpiece. They were waiting. Inside the building, the lights were dim. It looked like only a skeleton crew was working. This was exactly what Gio wanted the Zabrani to see. Suddenly, one guard's radio beeped. Movement in Sector 4, a voice said. 3 Zabras approaching from the east side. The guards didn't react. They kept looking bored. But inside the building, soldiers moved into position. And in the dark corners of each room, Howlers waited, not making a sound. Not yet. The Zabras came like shadows over the wall. They moved so quickly and quietly that normal cameras would have missed them. But these weren't normal cameras. Dr. Subin had designed them specifically to track Zabra movement. They're in, the voice on the radio said. Captain Gio, watching from a hidden command center, nodded to Lieutenant Hyun. Now we see if our plan works. The Zabras moved through the building like dark water, flowing around corners and under doors. They found no resistance. No alarms went off. They reached the main control room in less than 5 minutes. Inside, just 2 humans seemed to be working. The Zabras slipped in through the air vents, dropping silently to the floor. Then the lights came on full, bright white, blinding. Now, Joe ordered into his radio. The 2 humans at the controls jumped up. The walls of the room slid open. 20 soldiers appeared, weapons ready, and from hidden doors in the floor, 6 Howlers leaped out. The Zabras, caught in the open, froze for just a second. That was all the time the Howlers needed. The first howl came from a big black howler named Thunder. It wasn't just a sound. It was a battle cry that shook the walls. The other Howlers joined in, their voices making a terrible, beautiful chorus that filled the room. The Zabras tried to scatter, to find shadows to hide in. But the lights were too bright. There was nowhere to hide. The first Zabra went down under Thunder's massive jaws. The Howler caught it mid-jump and slammed it to the floor. The Zabra fought back with sharp claws, cutting into Thunder's side. But the Howler didn't let go. All around the room, Howlers and Zabras fought. The Zabras were fast, their attacks like lightning. But the Howlers were strong, and they worked as a team. They called to each other, moving together, backing each other up. In the arena across town, Jiho got the signal. Defense grid secure. Han's voice said in his ear. Power station secure too. The Zabras have been contained. Now it was time for the final act. Joe looked across the arena to where Vexa and Telex sat watching the night challenge. They had no idea their plan was failing. Jiho touched Stormbringer's head. Ready, boy? The Howler looked up at him with those glowing blue eyes. Ready. Jiho pressed a button on his wrist. All around the arena, lights blazed on. The night challenge was over before it began. Ambassador Vexa, Commander Telex, Joe called out, his voice carrying across the now bright arena. I think we need to talk about your real reason for coming to Earth. Telex stood up, his face hard with anger. What is the meaning of this? I think you know, Jiho said. Your Zabras aren't just here for a friendly contest. They're here to sabotage our defenses, to prepare for a Vectar attack. The crowd gasped. The soldiers in plain clothes moved in, surrounding the Zabrani box. You have no proof, Vexa said, but her voice was cold with fear. Jiho smiled. Actually, we do. And right now, your Zabras are learning an important lesson about Howlers. Stormbringer threw back his head and howled. The sound echoed through the arena like a war drum. They may not be silent, Jiho said, but they're just as deadly. Chaos broke out in the arena. The Zabrani delegation was surrounded by Earth soldiers. The crowd was being moved to safety. And in the center of it all stood Jiho with Stormbringer at his side. This contest was never about finding the better weapon. Jiho said to Vexa and Telex, it was about getting your Zabras into our facilities, about preparing for a Vectar attack. Telex's face twisted with anger. You know nothing, human. Suddenly, 3 Zabras appeared from nowhere. They had been hiding in the Zabrani box, waiting. They leaped toward Jiho, moving so fast they were almost a blur. But Stormbringer was faster. The Howler jumped in front of Jiho, meeting the first Zabra in midair. They crashed to the ground, rolling and tearing at each other. The other 2 Zabras circled, looking for an opening. Jiho pulled out his weapon, but he was too slow. One Zabra slipped past him, its claws cutting deep into his leg. The pain was sharp and hot. Jiho fell to one knee. The Zabra moved in for the kill. Its face was blank, emotionless. Just a perfect killing machine doing its job. Through the pain, Jiho reached for his neural link with Stormbringer. He felt the Howler's mind touch his, felt his strength, his fury. Stormbringer threw off the first Zabra and turned to see Jiho in danger. The Howler let out a howl that was not just loud, it was terrifying. A sound that reached into the most primitive part of the brain and squeezed. The attacking Zabra hesitated for just a second. That was all Stormbringer needed. The Howler leaped, massive jaws closing on the Zabra's neck. There was a sharp crack, and the Zabra went limp. But there were more coming. 5 more Zabras appeared, moving toward Jiho and Stormbringer from all sides. The Howler stood over his injured human, teeth bared, blood dripping from cuts on his sides. They will kill you and your Howler, Telex said, smiling now. Our Zabras feel no fear, feel no pain. They will not stop. You're wrong, Jiho said through gritted teeth. There is one thing your Zabras should fear. As if on cue, a chorus of howls filled the air. From all sides of the arena, Howlers appeared, 10 of them, then 20, all racing toward Jiho and Stormbringer. What is this? Vexa asked, the confidence gone from her voice. This is what you didn't understand about Howlers, Jiho said. They're not just weapons. They're a pack, a family. And when one howls for help, they all come. The Zabras were caught in the open as Howlers poured into the arena. What followed was not a fight, it was a storm. The Zabras were fast and deadly, but they fought alone. The Howlers fought together, calling to each other, moving as one. 3 Howlers would surround one Zabra, working together to bring it down. In the middle of the battle, Stormbringer stood over Jiho, protecting him from any Zabra that got through. Through their bond, Jiho felt the Howler's pain from his wounds, but also his fierce joy in the fight, his pride in his pack. Dr. Subin appeared at Jiho's side with a medical kit. As she worked on his leg, she kept looking at the fighting animals. "Look at the Zabras," she said quietly. "Something's wrong with them." Jiho watched through the pain. The Zabras were still fighting, still killing, but they seemed confused. Several were running in circles. Others were attacking each other. "They're control chips," Subin said. "The neural devices the Zabrani use to control them. They're failing under the Howler's sound." It was true. The Howler's constant howling was somehow interfering with the Zabras control systems. They were breaking free from Zabrani control, and they were angry. The tide of the battle was turning. The Howlers were winning. And the Zabrani were beginning to understand just how wrong they had been about these loud, emotional creatures from Earth. 1 month after the battle in the arena, Jiho stood at the window of the Earth Defense Headquarters. His leg was still healing, but he could walk without much pain now. Outside, in the training yard, something remarkable was happening. Howlers and Zabras were training together. After the Zabrani plot was exposed, the Earth forces had captured many Zabras. Most were badly injured. Some were killed, but 12 had survived, including several whose control chips had been completely destroyed by the Howler's sonic attacks. Dr. Subin had taken charge of them. For weeks, she had worked day and night in her lab. What she discovered shocked everyone. "Captain Kim," she said, walking up beside him at the window. "How does our new training program look to you?" "Amazing," Jiho said honestly. "I never thought I'd see this day." In the yard, Stormbringer was running an obstacle course. Beside him was a Zabra, smaller than the Howler, but just as fast. They moved together, taking different paths but reaching the same goal. The Zabras were never naturally silent. Subin explained. The Zabrani cut their vocal cords and put control chips in their brains. They weren't natural predators at all. They were slaves. Jiho nodded. He had read Subin's reports. The Zabras were from a planet the Zabrani had conquered long ago. They had been normal animals until the Zabrani changed them, turned them into weapons. "And now?" he asked. "Now they're learning to be themselves again," Subin said with a smile. "The ones whose vocal cords we could repair are even making sounds. Not howls yet, but something like purring." Through the glass, they watched as a young Zabra successfully completed a jump over a high wall. A Howler nearby gave an encouraging bark. The Zabra turned to the Howler and made a small sound, the first steps toward finding its voice. "The Zabrani delegation has arrived, Captain," Lieutenant Hyun said, entering the room. "They're in the main conference room." Jiho took a deep breath. This would not be an easy meeting. In the conference room, a new Zabrani ambassador waited. The old leadership, Vexa, Telex, and Nira, had been removed from power after Earth revealed their plot to the Zabrani people. It turned out many Zabrani had not known about the alliance with the Vector or the true nature of the Zabras. "Ambassador Krell," Jiho said, entering the room with Stormbringer at his side. "Welcome to Earth." The new ambassador looked nervous around the Howler, but tried to hide it. "Captain Kim, thank you for agreeing to meet." "You said you had important news," Jiho said. "Yes, the Vector fleet has been spotted moving toward Zabrani space. They are angry that our plan failed." Krell looked down. "We need Earth's help. For real this time. And why should we trust you now?" Jiho asked. "Because we have seen the error of our ways," Krell said. "Your Howlers defeated our Zabras not because they were stronger or faster, but because they fought for something they believed in. Because they were partners, not slaves." As if understanding, Stormbringer gave a soft woof. Jiho thought for a long moment. Then he reached down and put his hand on Stormbringer's head, feeling the bond between them. "A real alliance means trust," he said finally. "It means fighting together, not using each other. Can your people accept that? Yes, Krell said. We are ready to learn. Later that day, Jiho and Subin watched as the first Zabrani handlers were introduced to rehabilitated Zabras. Unlike before, these Zabrani did not try to control the Zabras. They offered friendship instead. One Zabra, a female with silver streaks in her black fur, approached a young Zabrani. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then the Zabra made a sound, rough and unpracticed, but clear. It was not a howl. Not yet, but it was a beginning. They were silent assassins, Subin said quietly, but now they're finding their voice. And together, Joe added, watching Stormbringer join the group, they'll be stronger than either was alone. As if in agreement, Howlers and Zabras lifted their voices together, one in a mighty howl, the other in a new, uncertain cry. But they were both being heard. The end.